Welcome back to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Now, when William Ruto realized that Kenyans had cornered him, he thought for a while, and I think his advisors told him, wale ambao wanapiga kelele sana, wapatie kazi. And it was not just giving them jobs. William Ruto knew that in government, there are dockets where corruption thrives. And he knew very well that he was going to sign some shoddy deals. So what did he do? He decided to give Mbadi the finance ministry because everything in this country just goes around the finance, because for money to be dished out, for Kenya to sign some government to government deals like it happened in oil, Treasury is a key docket there. Then energy was another one, because I remember slightly before Raila Odinga and his team joined William Ruto, there was a G2G oil deal. And Raila used to call press conferences castigating the government and saying that some money was lost. So what did William Ruto do? Chukua wale ambao wanapiga kelele, waweka hapa, wapatie kitu kidogo. And table manners requires that you will not make noise. Instead, ukisha shiba, utaangalia wale ambao hawajashiba wakipiga kelele, unawaambia wewe unatupigia kelele. Because I'm saying this because you remember that Raila Odinga supported Adani deal, and Adani wanted to expand. They had signed a deal to facelift our international airport, JKIA. That was going to involve Treasury directly. And of course, you've seen controversy there between even Edwin Sifuna and CS Mbadi trying hard to justify a deal that he was not even part of. It came in later. And then Adani had another deal with the energy sector. And you know very well that the energy sector was given to OOKO and I. So Ruto knew very well why he was selecting specifically OOKO and I for the energy and John Mbadi for finance. To date, you will never hear Raila Odinga or any of the ODM figures criticizing the government, except for maybe Edwin Sifuna and the Kisii Senator, Onyonka, and maybe Babu Owino. So after realizing that now ODM is deeply rooted, they have been even added, more dockets when the Nyoro team walifurushwa. There is another scandal that is looming. It is involving fuel again. As we speak, it is unimaginable that our fuel prices are higher than the neighboring countries. Now, people have switched camps and the shoe is on the other side of the foot now. One person who almost supported all these changes was Ndindi Nyoro when he was the chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee. He has now come fuming with fury, and he has now replaced people like John Mbadi, who used to make a lot of noise, and is now revealing that there is another scandal in this ministry. When he first raised questions, John Mbadi answered, but some people felt he fumbled. But there is something that he said that did not go well with Ndindi Nyoro, and this was it.
There are people who have roads until their bedrooms. They don't know that other people are suffering. So they only want those roads up to their bedrooms to be maintained. There are other constituencies in this country which have zero tarmac.
So today, ladies and gentlemen, Ndindi Nyoro reminded John Mbadi that you are no longer chatterbox. That's a very strong term. You are no longer chatterbox. Haufai kuongea mingi. The docket that you are in involves numbers. It is an empirical docket. You don't have to give us theory. You really need to explain in terms of numbers. And Mbadi reminded him of the figures, the real prices of petrol and oil and the fuel products. And if this is true, then we are cooked. Kindly listen to Ndindi Nyoro telling Mbadi, you're not a chatterbox.
I want to remind my brother that he's no longer the chatterbox he used to be. Now he holds a position with responsibility. And the docket where he holds and which he's the minister or cabinet secretary is an empirical docket. It is not a theoretical docket. His responses always need to be quantitative. You can't give tales on issues about figures because figures are glaring and they are stubborn. Now, the question or the answer that we need from them, one, it is there in the response of the minister or the cabinet secretary for energy that there was actually an introduction of 7 shillings last year. So the question is simple. Where is that money? Now, in their responses, they tried to justify that this money that was borrowed, that was introduced, was actually used as collateral to take debt, to take a loan from our local banks. Now, that loan is to be paid by Kenyans for the next 7 years. And the reason why I call this a scandal, Kenyans are borrowing now or are made to borrow 175 billion Kenya shillings. But after 7 years, Kenyans will be paying an extra 100 billion to the banks on top of the 175 billion. What is the urgency for? The critical issue is this one. The fuel price now currently in Kenya, just citing petrol, is 186 shillings. If you cross the border and you go to Tanzania, in this month, they are equivalent of EPRA that does the same that EPRA does. If you just check or you call anyone in Tanzania, the petrol prices in Tanzania currently is 142 shillings. The petrol prices in Uganda currently is below 182 shillings, marginally lower than Kenya. But diesel is much cheaper than Kenya, of course, because diesel in Uganda is below 170 shillings. If you go to Ethiopia, the current price of liter of petrol is maybe around 122 Ethiopian birr, which is also below 125 Kenya shillings. If you go to a place like Rwanda, Rwanda prices are also below 170 per liter of petrol. So the basic issue here is that the fuel prices in Kenya have been high, not because of global issues, but because of exorbitant levies and taxes.
Ladies and gentlemen, politicians will remain politicians. And the more things change, the more they remain the same. I'm sure if ODM walks out of government today and people like Ndindi Nyoro comes back to the government, the same thing will happen. People like John Mbadi will criticize, Ndindi Nyoro will defend. In all this, the only person who has remained at the peripheral and looking at things is the common man. John Mbadi and Ndindi Nyoro, ODM and Akina Gachagua, those people live in some flamboyant, environment. Sio mahali mimi na wewe tunakaa. So this political bickering is about themselves. But I like the fact that Ndindi Nyoro is now injecting and is questioning. How I wish that whatever he has brought up be taken with a lot of concern. But who will take it with a lot of concern? Because Mbadi is now in charge. And I can assure you, he will not allow this to happen. You will see another counter narrative. And now, Opiyo and I, who is manning the energy docket, and John Mbadi will all gang up against Ndindi Nyoro. Now, the funniest part of it is that you will see many of the people now castigating Ndindi Nyoro that ni kwa sababu ulifurushwa ndio maana umekasirika. That could be true. But hata kama mtu amekasirika na anatuambia ukweli, that is all we care. And we don't care that someone was in the government and they was dining and cohabiting with the oppressor. Now he's been chased away. He's now telling us the truth. All we care is the truth. Because Someone wants to divert our attention now that you see, Ndindi Nyoro is the bad one here. We want to stick to the truth, not the personalities. I've always said on this channel that if a madman is saying the truth, let us not see or look at the madman, but let us look at the truth that he's talking about. If Raila Amolo Odinga believed back then, or the ODM rather, believed that there was a scandal in the G2G oil deal, then I believe that this is another scandal or a scandal in the making. And I'm not an accountant and I can't go deep and explain what is. But if there is something as a layman that baffles me and I would really wonder to know, why are our prices higher than the prices in the neighboring countries? That's the thing that I want to know. Leave alone all the other things and all the terms, accounting terms that you can use. I don't understand them. Just basic, why is our price higher than the neighboring, And what about this loan that Ndindi Nyoro is saying that we will pay 100 billion more? I mean, mtu anakula hapa. If these are the people that Raila called experts, indeed they are experts in concealing what is happening. No wonder they are saying, hata sisi wacha tukamue hii ng'ombe. Indeed wanaikamua. Wanaikamua kweli kweli. But it is very sad that this is happening in our country. It is very sad that politicians have now switched camps. And this is a circle. It will continue. They will continue, just swapping roles. Leo huyu ako hapa, anaongea hivi, huyu mwingine. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to agree with Ndindi Nyoro that we need empirical explanations, figures, and why those figures are there, not accusations and counter accusations. And it only reveals to me why Raila was supporting Adani deal, because Adani had signed a deal with Energy where Opiyo and his man is, and Treasury was very crucial. It also confirms that Ruto knew very well which button to press. Look for the noisemakers, bring them in, and then you extinguish the fire. But Ndindi Nyoro is there. If they thought that it was only Raila and the ODM who could make a lot of noise, the likes of Ndindi Nyoro, the former Attorney General Muturi, people are there. And a luta continua, people will continue asking questions. Kenyans, we really need to rise up. We really need to rise up, because if at all people are going to continue looting, then our children and grandchildren are going to remain with this burden. It will be very difficult for us in the future. And this is why I'm saying, let us try and make changes come 2027, because we cannot continue living like this. This government had promised that they were not going to take loans. They're now taking even bigger loans.